today's webinar. Hello everyone and welcome to our today's webinar, which is a part of a broader series dedicated to open journal systems. And I will just briefly explain why we are doing this now when there are so many things happening around open journal systems. First of all, open journal systems is probably the most popular and widely used, globally used free and open source software, which has been around for more than 20 years. Like the first version appeared in 2001, which is almost a quarter of a century. There are many interesting developments now. There are many projects that are going on. Some of them are directly focused on open journal systems like Craft OA, for example, but there are some other projects like, for example, Almasi or Diamas that deal with this, but it's not a central topic. And there will be more such projects. There are many local initiatives and many local platforms, and there are global platforms that are based on the software. And what we've observed is a huge community interest, and there are growing needs in the community. And basically, this series is a kind of a response to requests coming from the community, asking us to organize such webinars, to explain some technical issues, to connect people with other people dealing with the same issues, because, us in AFL, we are not technical people. We can direct you to proper guidelines, but we can't really solve some technical issues, and there is a huge need for networking in this area. For this purpose, we have created an empty, it's now empty, spreadsheet, and we would like to capture the tools, those that will be presented during this series and this session as well, and any other tools that you know. And some of them may not be perfectly useful, but just make a record and make a comment in there. So we are focusing, unlike some other webinars, we will be focusing on use cases. That's our the primary purpose of this series. And we would like to hear some very practical recommendations and experience of the people we will be inviting. This is not an organized course. You will see the topics will be quite randomly organized depending on our speakers, but eventually we will try to systemize this and probably, I don't know, create some other outputs that might be useful. So this will provide input for our other efforts. For those who don't know, and I'm quite sure there are not many such people around, this is Open Journal Systems is free and open source software, and it's managed and created and updated by the Public Knowledge Project based in Canada, but it is a non-profit research initiative encompassing several institutions. And it's also contributed to by a huge community. And here on the slide, you will find some links, some useful links. And there is also, in April, we created a checklist of good practices in using open journal systems, which is along the lines of this webinar series. So you will find practical advice there, but a bit more in a more systematic way. As for today's sessions, we will have 3 presentations, and this will be a kind of a usual format. So we will have a presentation by the Norwegian Sub-Century Academic Publishing platform by Carl Magnus Nielsen, and the topic will be a very specific one. We will see in a minute. We will have a presentation by Dr. Vaso Manojlovic, who is managing several journals in Serbia, and we will have a very interesting presentation about enabling the Open Access Initiative protocol for metadata harvesting in Open Journal System to improve the interoperability and integration of your Open Journal System platforms with content aggregators and repository aggregators. That's all from me. Over to you, Carl Magnus. I'll stop sharing.
Yes, thank you.
Comment that if you have any questions, colleagues, please use a Q&A functionality in Zoom. Thank you, and over to you, Carl Magnus.
Yes, thank you. So I hope you can see my presentation now. Yes, thank you for letting us have this talk. My name is Carl Magnus Nielsen. I represent Septentio Academic Publishing at UiT, the Arctic University of Norway. I've called this talk Multilingualism in OJS, Issues and the Lessons Learned, as we would like to share some experiences we've had when working with multilingualism in our OJS platform. I will start by very briefly introducing Septentrio Academic Publishing and who we are and what we do, and then I will talk about multilingualism in general and challenges in OJS, and then go over to talk about a few cases we have experienced over the years, which I hope will be of use for you. Septentrio is a free service for open access journals at UiT, the Arctic University of Norway. It's administered by the staff at the University Library. We were established back in 2003 with a single journal. The last 5 years or so, we have had a rapid increase in journals. So now we have, at the moment, 29 journals running on our platform. We are 100% Diamond open access and powered by open journal systems. And it has been since the start. So we've probably been one of the first that started using it. We have about 2 full-time equivalents working in Septentrio, but we are a team of 5 to 6 people working there in addition to other tasks at the library. So multilingualism in computer system is a topic that has more or less focus, depending on often depending on where the system is developed. So in English-speaking countries, there may be less focus on the issue because everybody speaks English, right? But in non-English-speaking countries, the emphasis on multilingualism is naturally often bigger, and the system is often built with multilingualism in mind. And it is an important issue, and that for several reasons. And above all, it is because it increases accessibility. A broader audience will be able to use and understand the system so that it makes the technology accessible to non-English speakers. So that's an obvious one. It also improves user experience. If users can interact with systems in their native language, the experience may be more intuitive and more comfortable, and it eventually makes users happier, more satisfied. And the third thing, it keeps languages alive. A language must be used or else it may die. And this may sound dramatic, but for quite a lot of smaller languages, this is actually the case. There are also calls for multilingualism by the Helsinki Initiative on Multilingualism in Scholarly Communication. It addresses various stakeholders to support multilingualism. The Diamond Open Access Standard also has a concrete set of requirements or recommendations on multilingual support on publishing platforms. So it is an important issue. So here I have some numbers for you. There are different estimates, but according to Ethnologue, a research center for language intelligence, there are 7,164 languages in use today, or at least as of last Thursday. The 20 largest languages are the native tongue of more than 3.6 billion people, and that's close to half of the world's population. But then on the other hand, about 54% of the languages in the world today are used by 10,000 people or less. And most of these languages are considered endangered. So to keep these languages alive, they need to be used and they need to be visible. And maybe computer systems like open journal systems might help in that matter. Open Journal Systems is a system of Canadian origin, and that is a country with more than one language. You have the 2 large languages, English and French, but there are also many minority languages. So maybe that is why OJS has always, or at least as long as I have been involved in OJS-related work, had a focus on multilingual features or multilingualism as a backbone. When I started working in IT 20 years ago, you could clearly see the difference between systems that had been developed with multilingualism in mind from the start, and those who had to implement it after some years of development. The latter often gets more messy than the first one. So OJS's user interface is translated into a fair number of languages. I don't have an exact number, and some translations are not 100%, but there are quite a lot. It also has other language features and capabilities like multilingual metadata and submissions. So in OJS, we have language settings in 3 categories. That's user interface, we have forms, which is another name for metadata, and you have submissions. So to mark the submissions and articles in the correct language. So I will present 2 cases from Septentrio's practice. The first is about how to define smaller languages in the OJS locale registry so that a submission may be marked in the correct language. The other case is about translation of email templates and what you should be aware of when translating. So the first one, smaller languages and ISO codes. Computer systems often use ISO standard language codes when implementing languages, and they come in 3 versions. We have the 2-letter codes in ISO 6391 and 3-letter codes in ISO 6392 and 3. As you can see from the example here with Italian, you have IT, the 2-letter code, and ITA, the 3-letter code. ISO 6391 covers major languages, mostly national individual languages. It includes a relatively small number of languages, but is covering a large number of users. ISO 6392 covers a larger number of widely known individual languages than 6391. And 6393 covers all individual languages, including living, extinct, and ancient languages. OJS uses both 6391 and 6392 and 3 codes, and every language available in OJS out of the box have both code versions defined in the system. And you will need both code versions. So if you want to add a new language without an ISO 6391 code, it will not work. Now this is, of course, the challenge for smaller languages, because it may be so small that it does not have a 6391 code. We have had this issue with 5 smaller languages. It's the Southern Sami, Lule Sami, Inari Sami, you have Kven Finnish and Tornedalen Finnish. The first 3 are Sami languages, which are spoken by the indigenous people of Norway, northern Sweden, Finland, and northwestern Russia. The other 2 are also minority languages from the same area. And none of these 5 languages have ISO 6391 language codes. So we can have a look at a case we had with Inari Sami. This is a language with a few hundred speakers. It is considered seriously endangered, and there is very little literature at all written in Inari Sami. The authors of the submission in the language were very keen on having the article marked in the correct language, because it is probably one of very, very few articles written in Inari Sami, maybe the only one at this level. But how do we accomplish that without a 6391 code? Well, we just had to be creative. So this is how we solved it. And this solution is for OJS 3.3, which is the version we currently use. We have also tested it for version 3.4. And in that version, languages are handled a little differently. So we have a solution for that as well. But I will not go into details about that here. If anyone wants more details, please send me an email. Okay, so all available languages are defined in the file locales XML in the registry folder. It's 1 line per language. And here's an example with Italian again. There are several attributes, as you can see. The key attribute, the first one, is the actual ISO 6391 code with a region suffix. The other attributes, you have a complete attribute that says something about if the translation is complete or not in the user interface. You have the name in the language itself, and then you have the other ISO codes. To add a new language, you need to add a line like this in this file. And as I said, Inari Sami does not have a code, so we cannot set a value for the key attribute. But luckily, there are quite a few unassigned ISO 6391 codes out there. So we thought, what if we just assign an unused code for this language? So we tried that, and it worked. So to add a new language like this, you need first to find an unassigned 6391 code. You can find lists of codes that is used, and also there's a list of unused codes as well. So just pick one. Then add a line in this file that I mentioned on the last slide, locales XML, with the unassigned code as key. So here you can see we have done that. We chose the code SY with a region suffix that can be whatever you like. It's not really being used for anything, and in OJS 3.4 it will be removed, or at least not mandatory. And then we set the complete attribute to false because we are not translating the user interface. And then we put the name in the language itself, and then the other ISO codes that they do exist. You will also need to add a folder. Sorry, you also need to add a folder in the locale folder with the same name as the key attribute. This folder can be empty, but it needs to be there for the system to accept the new language. This folder, what it does is to hold all the user interface translations for the language. But since we are using this language only for the submission files, it can be empty. So the language will now show up in the list of available languages in the admin interface, and it can be installed and used like any other language, like this. So this is what you see when you say install locale, and then you have the available ones here, and at the bottom you have Anareshkiela, which is the name of Inarisami in Inarisami. So we have done this for all the 5 languages mentioned earlier, and here you have examples of articles in those languages. We hope this has helped the visibility of those languages, that it is possible to search for articles in the language and view them. When you do a hack like this, it might affect other parts of the system that you hadn't foreseen. But the only issue we have experienced is with the Crossref XML export plugin. We use Crossref to get DOIs to our articles and use the plugin to deposit metadata and assign DOIs to our articles. The XML deposit to Crossref fails on this invalid language code, so you cannot use the plugin for these articles. We have found a workaround because this language code is only connected to the authors in the XML that is exported or imported into Crossref. So we use the plugin to export an XML file. Then we remove the failing language code in the XML and deposit it manually without language code using the Crossref admin tool on their webpage. So we make it work, but in the long term, I think both Crossref and OJS should come up with a solution that does not discriminate smaller languages. So the second case, I will talk about translation in OJS and a special case we have experienced there. Translation of the user interface in OJS is done through a tool called WebLate. And I will not go into details about how it works, but to put it short, for those of you not familiar with it, it is a web-based tool where anybody can contribute to the translation of every language in the system. You can view and access the different modules in OJS and the other PKP systems. You can choose a language and then view or edit the translations. It is a nice and easy tool for contributing to translating, and it has mechanisms for cooperation on translation work. And when a new version of OJS is released, it uses the translations currently in WebLate. there are different strategies working on translations. The easiest and quickest is just to go through the expressions word by word, sentence by sentence, and then translate. The problem with this is that you don't necessarily know the context of the term you are translating. And this can lead to strange, or in some cases totally wrong, texts being used on your site. And as you can see from this screenshot from Weblate, this is all you see when you translate a term. You see here, this is the English original text, and then you have the Norwegian translation, which we have written there. And you also see a context to the right, which is, you might get some help from that, understanding the context, but you should know the system very well. And because this is an ID or a key, this string is used in the system to put it in the right place. It is not always intuitive, so we don't necessarily know where this all items term is used. So we experienced this context issue with an email template that was translated without knowing the full context. So in the review stage of the workflow, an editor can send reminders to reviewers to either remind a reviewer to respond to a review invitation or remind a reviewer to deliver a review. The reminders are sent as emails using the very same email templates, and this is called review remind. The English template text is formulated in such a way that it fits both contexts. So it says, just a gentle reminder of our request for your review of the submission. This works well for both contexts. But the Norwegian translators only thought of or only knew of the second context. So here is a Norwegian translation. And since this is a talk about multilingualism, I'll translate it for you. It says, this email is sent to you to remind you that you have accepted the review of the article. And we look forward to receive your review when it's ready. This is not the same thing as the first case. So it, of course, as you can imagine, did not make the potential reviewers who had not yet accepted the invitation very happy. So they told the editors that they had not accepted anything yet. And the editors came to us wondering what was wrong. And then we started to investigate. And we thought maybe there was something, the wrong template was used or something like that. But we eventually found out that the same template was used for 2 different cases. And we looked at the English text and again, and then we rewrote the Norwegian text to fit both contexts. So this is a typical lesson learned for us. Find out where the text is being used before you translate. Yes, and thank you for listening. I hope you learned something today from our experiences.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting, and I'm glad that we started with the issue of multilingualism. Currently, there are no questions in the Q&A section, but I'd like to ask a very practical question, and it's related to the first topic. So let's imagine there in the future there is an ISO code assigned, and you can assign it in a regular way. Would it be too difficult? And do you have a kind of a plan for a workflow how to correct and update all those records that you have already created?
Yes, it is possible, because we, for some of these Sami languages, we earlier used a code that was, like you could say, a code that is used for all Sami languages. We had to change that into the separate languages at some point. So we know what to do to change the codes for the individual articles and submissions. It's just a simple change in the database. So yeah, that's possible. So when the solution is or when the code is ready, we can fix it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. If there are no other questions,
One in the chat. Do we have email integration plugin? I guess it's broader than multilingualism, but
yeah,
you can address that. Which email
if there's a plugin, email integration plugin. I think the email functionality is a part of OJS. So I don't think you need a plugin for that, or not quite sure, but I think it's a basic functionality.
Yeah, it's been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please, if you want to add more questions, you can do it in the Q&A. We can answer there, and others can also comment. And if there are no other questions, perhaps we can proceed with the next presentation, and we can, in the final Q&A, we can cover all the presentations if you have the time. Vas, over to you, please.
Hello everyone. Do you hear me and see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Vaso Manojlović, and I came from University of Belgrade in Serbia, and today I will share you my experience, best practices using this open journal system. And the special case, in the special case, I will show you how I scrapped data from old website and put it in this platform. So I started to use this platform from 2016. And why did I decide to use this platform? Because it's open source, free to use. There are many active communities, continuous updates, and the key benefits are transparency for all author, reviewer, and readers, good editorial workflow, and it's easy to submit a paper. So our goal was to make our journal better quality and make it visible. So first we managed to get indexed in the directory of open access journals in 2000, year after the installation of this platform. And I must say the transparency and the policy helped us a lot in this area. So after 2 years, we managed to be indexed in Web of Science extended list, and after 3 years, we were indexed in the Scopus. Yes, the greatest challenge for this first journal I managed was after we were indexed in Scopus 2019 year, we get high number of submission, about 200, and only few editors were working on this journal, so it was impossible to continue on this direction. So we decided to transfer ownership, and it is interesting that new owner of this journal lost status in directory of open access journals because of lack of transparency. They didn't manage to continue in transparency in managing journal. After that, we started a new journal from 2023, and also from this year we will use this platform for Congress. And here the good benefit of using this platform, of course, is digital object identification integration. It's easy to use, implement, and update, keeping track if you use the integrated tool inside this platform. And we have the greatest challenges for the many journals is hosting challenges, because in academia we have limited or no technical support from university, because they have a lot of work and they don't have time to deal with these new platforms or open source software. So I rented a virtual private server first, and I have several crashes, but the biggest one is in 2023, when I thought that we lost all of our data, and I was really in panic. So I called my friend, and he managed to save my databases, and we managed to migrate it to his server. Now I have his full support, which is very affordable for this platform like this. Here is a link. You can visit it and see. The next journal I was managing is Zaštita materijala, or on English, materials protection. Also, friend Professor Časlav Lašnjac wanted to use this open journal system platform. So the biggest challenge here was to transfer all articles from old website to new platform. So there is a tool in this platform called native XML plugin for import exporting articles and issue. But when you don't have XML of old website, which is the major situation for many journals, you have to manually enter the metadata from the old articles. So I decided, because there was a lot of papers and issues from 2014, I think, and I decided to make a Python script on Google Colab to scrap the data from the old website and generate XML that could be readable with this native XML plugin in OpenJournal system. So I will shortly show you the steps I use for creating this script. There is a tool in Python called Beautiful Soap. So you have to enter the old website where all the articles are stored. Then you find each link for each article. After that, you are scrapping the metadata like title, abstract. English we have here also Serbian, which is good for diversity, as Carl was speaking. Also keywords, authors, affiliations, digital object identification number, file link, which is the PDF file of all article, references, and pages. So we scrapped all this information, and this is how the final table looks like. So you see we have title in different languages, abstract, keywords, all those metadata I was speaking, references also. After the scrapping data, those data should be placed into XML file. So I created a script to create XML file from those scrapped data. I can share you the script later. And I must note it here that for different websites and different journals, this script should be or could be modified, so it could be adapted to the website, old website. So here is the part of the code that generates XML file, and at the end you have also created Excel file and XML file that could be imported into our new website. So at the end, I would make some practical tips in conclusion. Keep your OpenJournal system updated. It's easier to make updates from a smaller version to higher than, for example, from version number 2 to 3. I have a lot of issue with databases. Also maintain good quality metadata. Make sure that your metadata of your articles are correct, and which is essential for those indexing bases. Also make a good transparency and editorial ethics, and of course, at the end, it's important to get as much editor as you can engage in this process and to commit time for management. Thank you for your time. If you have any question.
Thank you, Vaso, very much. We will be sharing the presentation, so I guess those links are direct links to the tools, and anybody can use the tools. Yes, thank you very much. Currently, we had a question. Can you share with us the Python script that we can reuse? Yes, it will be in the presentation, so you will get.
I can share you maybe in a chat.
Yes, in the chat or in the Q&A. So please do, and we will add it to the resources so that anybody can use. And there was a question, it was answered by Carl Magnus about translations, and there is an interesting discussion in the chat about translating the interface, but I won't get into this discussion now. Perhaps this is a good topic for one of the next webinars, how to manage translations, because there are many options, and I think that none of them is really optimal. If there are no questions about
Milica, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I'm unmuted now. So let's proceed to the third presentation. And then if you have any additional questions, please use Q&A and we can have some discussion later on. Friedrich, over to you, please.
Yes, thank you. I will try to share my presentation. Is it visible now?
It is, but it's not in the presentation mode.
Yes, I'll try the reading mode. Is it switched it?
Yes, but we can still see the panel
Okay.
on the left.
And now?
That's perfect.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, my name is Friedrich Sumann. I am working for Core since last year, and I have an experience of, I think, 20 years, 2 decades of harvesting repositories. And this means just working with OAI-PMH and those interfaces. And I will try to share my experiences with you. This slide shows the core environment. Core is a service provider which is working on a global level and trying to index and include all repositories on a global scale. And you see here the figures Core is working with. We have more than 317 million metadata records indexed in the system. We have repositories from more than 150 countries. We have at least nearly 12,000 data providers indexed based on OAI-PMH, and more than 40,000 PDF extracted and stored locally. And this includes more than 5,000 installations based on OJS. And I'm working with OJS since the beginning, and have looked a lot of times to the internal interfaces of the system. My experiences means OJS is widely used. I can harvest a lot of installations worldwide. There are more than 50,000, and many of them I have taken a look at. OJS is, in comparison to other systems, very stable, and it is out of the box stable, and it is harvestable in most of the cases. There are only a few technical problems. There are some, I will talk about that more in detail later. And the metadata delivered by the system are well structured and complete. And I have to say, I'm looking by favor for the Dublin core, the OAI-DC metadata format. Interesting issue is OJS supports multiple journal platforms. And this is from the perspective of a service provider, this is fine because I do not have to deal with a single journals and missing journals or disappearing journals or new journals, and I can harvest the journal platform. And there are a lot of journal platforms related to university, and this is pretty interesting. My recommendations for the visibility of the OJS repositories is it's interesting and necessary to check the OAI-PMH interface via the browser to detect problems, to detect errors, and so on. I will show some examples for that later and how to do that. It's interesting from the service provider to have a correct contact address to respond and to feedback problems with the system. Because of the global usage related to core and other services is always interesting to deliver an English starting page and interface for those users. It's interesting to register the journals and the system at common registries. Open Archives.org is a possibility, and service providers as core it is, for example. I have added the URLs in here. It's always interesting to pay attention to the design and the information given on the OJS platform website, because sometimes end users come to this website and need some information about the affiliation, the branding of the repository, in fact. And take a look at some recommendations and guidelines which are available for the connectivity of those installations, and I have listed here the core example for that. I will show some minor issues in relationship to my work. This is a normal website, a platform website for the University of Warwick, and yeah, it's pretty nice to take a look at. And I mentioned it's always a good idea from the repository manager to take a look at the internal connectivity. What I have here is now a browser, and I filled in the OAI-PMH base URL. This is the URL, which is the standard OJS format. And if I call it in the browser, I get this information normally. This is a list records call with one of the metadata records. If this is available and the browser shows no problems, it's a good idea and it's a good environment, and I can work with it. And there are some potential problems I should mention. I have seen a lot of websites, more websites, which deliver only deleted records information and no real metadata records though the website is working and includes articles. And another problem is that the OAI interface delivers error message called no records match. The same problem. There are articles on the website, but the interface does not deliver the information. Another problem is there's only an empty page as a response, which I see more often. A specific problems was related to the version 3.0.6 and 7 because they had a cursor problem, a position problem, and they only delivered half of the available metadata records. Then another problem, which is more often occurring, the XML has a problem delivered by the interface. It includes PHP warnings, character encodings problems, or even HTML code. And you can check all these problems with the browser when you take a look at the base URL of your installation. And sometimes this is a problem as well. The links delivered normally in the DC identifier are not working because it's a local address, for example, and no URL, or the field is missing in total. Some of the errors, I have examples for that. This is the OAI error delivered with the information no records match and no further information. And this should be avoided, as well as this database error. More often, obviously, it has to do with the connection to the internal background database. And this should be repaired, otherwise there is no harvesting possible. And the same similar error message, database connection failed. No real XML response, but this error message. This is an example where the XML information is available, but at the start of the response, there is some HTML information given. This means the XML parser is not able to process this information and should be avoided as well. And the last point I would like to mention is this is information which I get as when I try to prepare the metadata information about the repository, about the journal. And in this case, it is an university website, and I do not see any information about it, about the contents, about the organization in the background. And this is not so easy to prepare the metadata information in that case, and to make the end user clear where it does come from. Yeah, this was a short overview about the problems and about the positive activities in the OJS environment for harvesting and preparing information for the visibility of the journals. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. We are having a discussion about language templates and sub-comments, but I have a question that is directly related to harvesting, and it's also related to multilingualism. And that's an issue that we noticed when harvesting repository content. So we have metadata in 2 languages, and there is a kind of a mismatch between what is in the metadata and what is in the PDF file, because Core captures PDF files if they are publicly available. So we had issues that when for some reason, I don't know why, some publishers even register metadata in English, even in their even if only abstracts are provided in English and the content is a different language, they give priority to English. There is a widespread practice, I'd say. So there is a similar practice in repositories. So somebody prioritized English language keywords and metadata, other metadata titles and abstracts when filling out the form in the repository. But in the PDF, we had a different situation. And for Core, it wasn't quite possible to harvest this data. It reported errors because there was a mismatch in what is in the file and what is in the metadata.
You mean the PDF could not be
Processed? It couldn't be processed, yes.
Okay.
And it was like marked in the dashboard, it was marked like not available.
Okay, I heard that case for the first time. Naturally, it's a problem of quality, of metadata quality. This mismatch between the information probably in the DC language of the Dublin core, and on the other hand, you mentioned these different aspects, as for example, the abstract is in a different language, or the document is in multiple languages and so on. I do not know about that. I have to contact my people in the core environment whether this problem still is existing. But normally I would say, at least for indexing, this should be no problem. And there should be a solution for that, just deciding one of the options, for example.
And basically, my point was that it's very important for content providers to adopt optimal practices. So aggregators will work very well, but as Vaso pointed out, metadata are really crucial, and it's very important to provide accurate metadata and accurate language information, and to avoid those mismatches in the documents and in the metadata.
Yeah.
So generally, those practices need to be improved. And there, when you analyze what's harvested and what's not harvested, this provide very important information on how to improve your practices as a data provider.
I would like to mention.
Matteo from Core responded that Core's interpretation is that the metadata language tag should match the one of the PDF. Most likely the metadata language tag was tagging the metadata language. So make sure that your metadata language tag is the same as a PDF, language of the PDF.
Exactly.
Matteo is my technical colleague from Core, who knows everything about that. But I would like to mention, as an addition, I have worked for different guidelines. Was one of the authors of the driver guidelines produced in 2008, and the first version of the OpenAir guidelines. And for the German DINI guidelines as well, I did some contributions, and it's related to data quality. And it's always a question of data quality and to improve that. And I was now focusing on technical issues, but data quality is very relevant as well. And all those guidelines, and I mentioned one of them that in my presentation, just are addressing metadata curation and quality as well.
And it's very important to ensure the quality metadata at the source, because metadata is disseminated widely, and you can't manage to correct it everywhere. So make sure, if you're a provider, make it correct. So we have some questions that are not really related to those topics today, but there is one. Did Core harvest automatically all OJS instance, or we may request this to be harvested and indexed? It's not very clear. Does this refer to platforms or not? I'm not sure.
I'm not so sure whether I have understood it correctly.
No.
I am trying to find out every journal and every repository I can find in some of the resources. I'm looking at open archives and other. I'm looking at listings, at national listings, at community listings. I have a long list of many OJS installation and try a lot of them, but it's 10,000 of that. So if you are know that this is not already available in Core, you can use the link I have added in the presentation and register your journal there directly. And then it will be processed directly. And I do not have any problem to find it.
Exactly, and it works quite efficiently.
And maybe related question, does shared hosting can impact the data OAI-PMH? I guess not really, right?
Ooh,
Probably a journal uses a shared hosting, and does it impact the quality of data in OAI-PMH? I guess it doesn't. People shouldn't.
it doesn't,
right?
No, it's the same one. Normally you can harvest the single journal and you can harvest the whole platform in one call. And I never saw any differences between the single metadata records.
Exactly, if it's set up properly by the service provider, then
Yes.
it's fine. We had a comment by Mark Huskinson saying that these problems mentioned relating to multilingualism are ideal subject for raising and working on at the PKP sprint, and the next of which has just been announced at the University of Oslo in June, the 2nd and the 3rd, and we have some announcements by Aisha in about some events and webinars in the chat. I guess that anybody can save the chat or not. No? Then we will give you a second to copy it. There is a question. We are already on time. Shall we make it longer for a few minutes? Or just,
Fortunately, we have another meeting starting in.
yeah, we have another meeting
now,
starting.
but we have two questions, so maybe I'll read those two questions, and if anyone could answer them quickly, if there is a way to answer them quickly. So I start with Jadranka's. Is there any difference in the metadata description between the content, for example, PDF translated automatically and content where humans do the translation? So one question is machine translation flagged in metadata? And then another question is about OJS API. We want to integrate OJS with our own workflow system, but the OJS API is quite simple. Can we read data from OJS database and tables? Does OJS provide data structure documents for versions 3.1.2? Thanks. So anyone who knows the answers to any of these questions, which are not simple ones?
I can suggest something else. So these questions are complicated, and perhaps the experts we have today cannot answer these questions. We will copy these questions in a shared document and try to provide answers at a later point in time, because we will have a series of webinars and we will try to engage the community. So we have to finish this now. Thank you very much. It was, for me at least, it was really interesting. We will try to organize the next session in about a month. You will be just follow all the channels and you will find this information. And let's hope that we will manage to engage the community and work together. We will also announce some third-party events because some of them are in the pipeline. So thank you very much, and see you around.
Thanks a lot, Milica, and maybe one more announcement about OJS updates webinar that will be happening in February. A useful one, I guess. Thanks a lot, and thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.